Hello and welcome to the Skip Barber eRace series, the gateway to motorsport that takes us on the esports world, starting here at the WeatherTech Laguna Seca in California. Cars like this, the Formula Skip Barbers, are very raceable around a circuit like this, and we're going to see some quality stuff here this afternoon. 20 of the top qualifiers of the fastest drivers get into this round for a two-race format here this afternoon. These drivers have done an awful lot of testing for this, and who can deal with the pressure the best is going to get ahead of that 20, heading through an 8-round calendar. Myself, Lewis McGlade, alongside me is Elliot Bishop, here on opening day. And Elliot, good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. We have some really close head-to-head racing, as we've seen in some of the qualifying sessions leading into this. A $20 entry fee to ultimately get into the servers. Each one of these drivers has basically set the top 20 fastest laps of I think it's almost 200 driver field. So these guys have already been on this track and set fast times to be able to ultimately earn their right to be here on this track, which is a really cool portion of this series. Obviously, a lot of series, you have to register and go through that process, and as soon as you register, you pay a fee and you're on the track. For this one, it's a low fee, but you have to compete to be able to get into the entry and get onto the track. So we're going to see some really competitive racing here. The top drivers, the fastest drivers, ultimately getting this opportunity. So it's going to be very exciting to see these drivers, go door to door and wheel to wheel with these open wheel cars here, Lewis.
Yeah, we've got the number one car. This is the top qualifier. The numbers that we have on screen on all the cars are the numbers in the position that they've qualified in. So the number one goes the way of Johnny Guindy, who was the top qualifier coming into this. Obviously, throughout the testing and stuff, they've actually had access to a lot of the Skip Barber instructors from the Skip Barber Racing School, which is a great thing to have. Like for a racer, that's actually quite important to have someone who knows what they're talking about to show you how to do things and to get you with it. We saw drivers like of Sven de Vries who really learned from it in some of the test sessions prior to this. Johnny Guindy, though, coming into it with the number one, definitely, obviously the fastest coming into it. Whether it'll be the fastest on race day is a very different matter. We're here in qualifying, and we're on the outlap at the moment. I've been told these cars are quite sketchy past the first lap, so we're expecting people to have like a really, really slow outlap to maybe make sure that they don't really abuse the tyres too much on that outlap. Let's take a look around the circuit then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rolling up towards turn one. Carry on.
Yep, with these drivers, just as you mentioned, we have, obviously this being an eRace series in the virtual world, we have drivers from all different respects of racing, some of them being real racers driving in the physical real world, and a lot of these guys actually coming up through sim racing and through other games, Forza Motorsports, iRacing, Assetto Corsa, which is what we're driving on here today. So it's cool to see, this level playing field to, pull in all of these drivers from all these different respects of motorsports and put them into one format. All these cars are the exact same, so there's no differentiation. Usually in motorsports, as many of us know, the money usually paves the way, and whatever you can afford as far as motor and a chassis is concerned gives you a competitive advantage, and that is squashed here in this racing series, which is really cool to see. So we'll see how much that real world experience helps some of these drivers, and how some of these guys are able to translate these other games that they compete in to be able to race here on Assetto Corsa.
Yeah, there are like you said, there's so many different sims out there and stuff that a lot of these drivers would have taken some time in. We've got some drivers from very high levels in sim racing all across the board, like you said, from iRacing and stuff. We've got Matt Boozer here, who's in the top level of oval racing on iRacing in the NASCAR Coca-Cola series, whatever it's called, I can't remember, sorry. It's a quality championship that they're taking part in over there. And the thing is, being at the top level of that, how does that translate into this? Not an oval.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting pace for a guy that's an oval racer. I know a lot of the guys that are fast in oval racing, ultimately started in karting. So at the end of the day, they have a lot of experience, and sometimes for a few of those guys, I know I used to race on the track against Brad Keselowski back out in Phoenix, Arizona at PKRA, and he was quite a bit faster than I was in karts, and karting was the respective motorsport that I was most active in. So it'll be interesting to see how a lot of that talent translates over. Obviously, being in this sim race, this is the one esport, this is the one facet of gaming that has a real world translation. If you're playing NBA 2K, you're not going to be able to hop onto the court and play against one of the top talents in basketball, LeBron James. You're probably not going to be able to go toe to toe with him. But in sim racing, a lot of the talents and abilities actually translate over pretty well. We've seen some of the legends in motorsports translate to sim racing during this respective quarantine, and they've been able to perform. So seeing that translation, some of that crossover, I don't think it'll be too challenging for the oval track drivers to drive here, in something that's open wheel. But that is a story to be told.
Absolutely. It is one of those things where you can learn a lot from sim racing, which will then translate into the main game, into the real world, should we get there. And of course, the champion of this season will very quickly just run off what the winner of this season gets, because it is a big prize, a huge prize pool for this championship. It's a full season in the 2020 Skip Barber Formula Race Series, which is a monstrously large prize. For those of you that are trying to get into motorsport, considering the pedigree of the Skip Barber Racing School, that's a quality prize to be a part of, and may catapult you onto the motorsport scene. Though here in qualifying, the opening qualifying session of the season, Cadwalder currently top in the session on a 22.729 ahead of Jablonski, who was holding that pole position earlier on. We've got 4 minutes and 30 seconds of the session to go, and we're looking at third place. Oh, is it third place? Nope, not on my sheet. Saxon. Anyway, the number 4 car. It's important to get that first qualifying session done, because we did watch from the test race a couple of days ago. Passing around this circuit is very difficult.
Absolutely, Lewis. The one name that I'm seeing missing from the tree right now, from the qualifying session, is actually our pole sitter, which is Johnny Guindy from Mexico City. So I'm wondering if he hasn't set a lap time yet, or if he was having a bit of a technical issue. We haven't seen him come through. You see the Fortan brothers in 8 and 9, those two being identical twins. I'm not entirely sure. Are they driving from the exact same location? Do you know that, Lewis?
Felix and Olivier both live in different places. They live in the same part of Canada, but not the same place. Guinea does set a time, by the way, so he has actually done one now, so he's gone up onto a 22.5. Still missing a few drivers from that list. Of course, there are 20 drivers here from the 20 qualifiers. Here is one that is missing. Not sure why it says 22.998 at the bottom, and it doesn't show up on the tower. I'm assuming they've picked up a track cut or something across that lap, and that's the time they've actually set, and it's just not gone through as it's been a track cut. They apparently, by the way, the Fortans, they apparently live a 5-minute walk away from each other. So there you go.
Oh, no worries. So if they have
identical twins,
if they have any door-to-door racing or tire-to-tire racing where one takes the other out, it'll be a 5-minute walk for a little discussion. So that'll be it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, absolutely. Just as I was talking about Guindy, I'm sure he heard us, and he's just like, hey, let me set my lap real quickly, and I'll just take pole away from the rest of the field. He was able to come in and put in a 1:22.557. So he's obviously 2/10 ahead of Cadwalder, who's in second place now. But yeah, that's interesting. As soon as we say that, he must have the stream in his ear, and he wants to prove something. So it's good to see him now. He's sitting on the pole. But as we were talking about a little bit earlier, a lot of these drivers are coming from different levels of motorsports. Many of them karting, and I think in general in karting, you go out and you put your few years in, and it costs you X amount of dollars, a few $10,000 or so to run a few season, and ultimately you revert. If you don't have the financing, you revert to something like sim racing. So I think obviously this program with Skip Barber, it's a huge opportunity for these guys to return back to motorsports. I mean, I know myself when I was racing, the opportunity to go and train with a real motorsports analyst and the team, teams like Skip Barber's teams. I mean, it's massive. It brings you as a driver from a level of being a competitor to the next stage that you want to get to. So I think that with this series, I mean, a lot of these guys are, this could be a pinnacle moment for them in moving them into the real world of the Skip Barber program.
Yeah, it only takes one good season to move yourself forward, and if that series is going to be online, well, why not make it this one? Of course, like you say, moving into a real world season doesn't really happen that often for the sim drivers. Like you say, some of them have got some experience in motorsport, but with it being so very, very expensive. I know Sven de Vries, close friend, raced in Formula 600 over the last years. Not raced at this venue in real life, but has raced across America quite a lot. And, had promise and has been very quick, has won multiple things in real life. But the thing is it doesn't do enough. Sometimes you need that background, you need that help, and you need the support and the right path. Because the thing is, you can win like a big championship and people be like, oh, okay. Whereas if you win something like this, because people know what Skip Barber is, it's a lot easier to take that and be like, I know how to apply that in the real world. And like teams will look at that and think, yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Saxon.
As we're coming into the last 20 seconds of qualifying, Saxon actually stepped up into second place there for a moment, but Cadwalder was able to come back and set another fast lap to be able to cut down a 10th on that time to be able to put himself back in second place. As we're coming down to the end of qualifying here, drivers will have one final opportunity to set and finish the lap that they are on. So we might see a bit of change go on as these drivers are coming across the track. This is their final opportunity. No mistakes can be made here. They have to do this perfectly if they want to compete for that pole position. Johnny Guindy, currently from Mexico City, holding the pole position. And it seems that Saxon potentially coming across the line there, he's going to be doing a little bit slower of a lap, so he's going to be stuck in third position for now. But as we're on board here with the 13 car of Short coming down through that iconic corkscrew, potentially he might have a chance to better his position.
Yeah, currently sat on a 22.879. By the way, Guindy showing an awful lot of confidence here. He set that 22.557. Has been in the garage ever since. Hasn't come back out onto the circuit, so he has had a high level of confidence. Cadwalder comes across the line to finish his lap, and massive moment out there for Short. Ooh. That's that lap done. That is why Guindy's got confidence, is because he's already got it sorted. We're with Gomez Jr. By the way, monster qualifying session from Short, from Gomez Jr. and from Jablonski, and to be fair, to Reese as well, who have qualified. They came into this with a 13, the 15, the 17. That's more of an indication as to where they realistically should be on track. Currently qualified way up the order. That is a big session for that lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And just as you said, Guindy, we were talking about him earlier. We didn't see him on track, and we're waiting for his hot lap. I'm not entirely sure with this sim and with the settings that we have set up here, but I know that in real world motorsports and with qualifying, sometimes it's better to wait for that rubber to be laid down on track, for the track to warm up just a little bit. Obviously Guindy came out, set his lap, and he just sat there.
Indeed, that was a decent lap time from Guindy to set that inaugural pole position of the season, and very, very well done indeed. Curious to see how the race is going to unfold, though. We've got a little bit to go into the race, and it'll be a 15-minute session. Well, we'll see what happens there. Until then, be right back. Welcome back then to the Skip Barber eRace series. We are done with the qualifying session, the first one of the season, the first one of 8, and we're getting ready for the very first race of the season. Lewis McGlade alongside me, Elliot Bishop. And Elliot, quality qualifying session, very, very nice pole lap from Guindy.
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't really see too many issues with any of the drivers, setting their fast laps. We didn't have any collisions or any yard sales, so to speak. Nothing, no spin outs in the corkscrew or anything like that, which is actually quite surprising. A lot of these guys, super talented drivers, super talented in sim racing. Obviously, they've worked super hard to qualify for their position. And as we saw, the qualifying session went pretty smoothly for most of the drivers. I'm sure a few of them hope to be a little bit higher in their standings. But as we say that, the lights are going to come on for race number 1, and Guindy on pole position, and we are set away here.
Yeah, Guindy's going to lead that one all the way down towards turn 1, and it's been a credible launch from there. There's a bit of a crash in the background. Not sure who was involved in that, but someone's gone straight down the pit exit road. Guindy, though, is going to lead from Cadwallader, down by Saxon, going to go 3 wide at the first corner. Guindy's going to hold the inside, and he's going to make a trouble-free run towards turn 2. Behind that, we've got Cadwallader, Saxon. De Vries has made a great start up in the 4th position, ahead of Jablonski, who's also moved his way up the order. Felix Antoine Fortin up into 6th position. Fantastic start for some of these through that first corner calamity. But through all of that, Guindy heading the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw Sven de Vries drive down onto that pit exit to avoid that collision into turn number 2. There's a bit of a spin out in turn 1, which is that little bit of a dog leg on the starting line, just as it's a little kink while they go into turn number 2, which is that long sweeping left-hander. But yeah, absolutely. Sven de Vries putting himself in 4th position. Guindy sitting up in 1st place right now. We have Cadwallader just behind. And now Sven de Vries making a pass seemingly out of nowhere. But it looks like he may have been pushed a little bit wide as they were going too wide into the corkscrew.
I think he still managed to hold it, though. I think Saxon's dropped a couple through that because Jablonski's also got ahead. So Joshua Jablonski up into 4th position, and Sven de Vries, but in the background, you can see there in the 11 car, has moved up into 3rd. We look back in the pack after a very decent qualifying position, has dropped back a few positions, but still very much in touch with this train is Gomez Jr. Just staring at the back of this and thinking where he can make his progress up the order. Got the eye on Yeaman just ahead of him on the run down towards the first corner of the lap. Cadwallader not dropped off the race lead of Guindy. Very impressive start to his race.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is really tight racing. And we've talked about this in the past, Lewis. These two guys, Guindy and Cadwallader, they're in a position now to just run away. They do not want to battle here. Cadwallader should just slide in and learn a thing or two by following Guindy through this track. He's in a position, ultimately to ultimately follow in that slipstream and to create a gap in between Cadwallader and de Vries here as they, come up into the corkscrew in the back end of this track. As we see for the battle for 3rd and 4th place, there's 4 cars back there. There's not a massive margin or ability for error here, as a lot of these cars are within, 2/10 of each other.
Yeah, it's been a good move up the order from de Vries, and like I said, Jablonski's just followed him all the way through. Felix Antoine Fortin down in 6th position, comfortably ahead of his twin brother, who's down in 16th place, but he is just about in touch with this. You saw a bit of a snap of oversteer there coming through the penultimate corner. Maybe the tyres already getting a little bit overheated here in the California sun. At the top end, though, you don't want a driver the likes of Sven de Vries to close in. His lap time, though, was not quick enough to close on the top lot. It was a 22.8 for Guindy and a 23.1 for Cadwallader. It was a 23 flat for de Vries, as far as I saw there. So Guindy setting a hot pace at the opening part of this race. Will that come to bite him later on with the tyres? Oh, we'll have to wait and see. Saxon's very much on the bottom end of getting his way past Jablonski. He's very much in check there.
Yeah, and it looks like Nicholas Shepard of the 19, he dropped down about 3 or 4 spots there from 14th to 18th, I believe. And I'm not sure if he had a spin back in the backside of the field. But yeah, as we kind of get into the later bits of the opening bit of this race, you see a bit of a cascading effect of the cars kind of dropping back. We're seeing gaps that are a little more than the 2/10. Just as you mentioned, Lewis, you really don't want to cook your tires early in the race. You want to put yourself in a position where you have the ability to stay in the race up until the pass. Oof. And as we see the 10 car go to the inside on the corkscrew, he's going to be put out. And he's going to drop back. I think that was Shattini. He ultimately went for the inside there, and it wasn't really looking to happen. And now he's dropped back. So just as I was saying, you don't want to cook your tires too early, because you're going to create an opportunity for the cars behind to catch up and look to the inside on one of these corners.
That was Manley getting by Shattini in the background. We've got Gomez Jr. and Neyman, who's those two have been fighting. Tooth and nail at the top, you've got Brian Lockwood, Porsche Esports Cup racer. over on iRacing, right at the top level of road course racing over there, now taking part in this. Currently in 9th position, he's got his way up the order and taking a part in this. Matt Buser has got by. Oh, I think Shattini's been off. Shatini's been off in the background because he's dropped down to 15th place now, down towards the back.
Yeah, it looks like
and
Manley.
I think those two have come together at the Andretti hairpin.
Yeah, and Manley was able to sort it out before he ended up at the very back of the field. As you see him, Olivier and him are going door to door and racing here. Oh. But I think that Nyman's just going to be stuck out to the outside, and it's going to be Gomez Jr. that's going to be holding that defensive line. But the 6 car just in behind of Lockwood, he still has an opportunity, but he's going to catch a little too much of the curb, and he's going to drop that back a position, and Nyman's going to slip through the inside into the corkscrew.
That was nearly a stunning move from Lockwood, but then ran it too far wide on the exit of turn 6. Just pushing it a little bit too. We're riding on board with Kerstetter on the back of DJ Alessandrini for the top 10. An important move that would be. Noticing at the top lot, Cadwalder's not dropped off the leader. He's not dropped off Guindy so much at the moment. So everything's staying very much line astern at the top end of the field. Looking back down the field at Shorts, who's got Shattini all over the back of him.
Yeah,
potential move brewing. This is a bit of a battle pack, isn't it?
Yeah, this is very close coming through turn number 1. We have quite a snake that's forming as these guys potentially looking to make some passes. These races not set. Ooh, it looks like the 13 car is going to go to the inside of the 5. I think that was Short going to the inside of Manley, but Short's setting it back up. Or Manley, sorry, setting it back up to the inside. Oh, but it looks like he's going to have a little bit of a spin, just a little too much understeer or oversteer rather. And it looks like he's going to be put back in the row. So now Manley back in 15th place. We had a few retirements early in the race. That's going to be Lockwood and Shepard.
Neyman's off. I've just seen his name dropping down the order. That was the battle for 7th. He's gone.
Yeah, he looked like he lost about 7 positions there. And now he's sitting in the position of 14, and he loses just another to Shattini. So Neiman's now back in 14th place. But potentially, as you spin, and a lot of these guys, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, when you make a bit of a spin, it creates more heat in the tires, and it puts you in a position where you have to drive more defensively. You can't push the ante that you were pushing previously. Your line changes just a little bit. The pace that you can take into corners changes. Your tires are overheated, so they're not going to have as much grip. And ultimately, you're putting yourself in a position where you have to run maybe 1 or 2 laps, depending on the sim that you're driving in, to be able to cool those tires down. So for those laps, all the drivers that are sitting behind you looking to increase their position in the row are going to be looking to battle and to make those passes after you make that mistake. As we were saying a little bit earlier, these drivers coming from all different respects of motorsports, they ultimately have different and varying levels of experience. But as you see here, I mean, these guys are all going at it, and they're very close. I mean, the furthest guy behind is ultimately on the same lap, even though we've had a few spins. So the racing has been very close. Yeah,
it's tight stuff. Like you say, if you make a mistake, you drop down the order very, very quickly because everyone's so close. As Olivier Fortin goes way, way too wide at T6, he's going to get passed here by Nicholas Short up towards the corkscrew, and that'll be an easy move unless he can try and stick it around the outside, which I don't think he can. He does concede that place, and 11th goes the way of Nicholas Short. So it's easy to run wide at turn 6. We've seen it's easy to spin it up, particularly into this corner. Whoa! There we go.
And then he spins out there.
There we go.
A full 360. Let's see if he can collect it. And it looks like he actually makes the full 360 and ends up on the racing line. But I think that Neiman actually ended up getting the short end of the stick there as he drove out off in the dirt as Olivier was trying to collect himself.
Yeah, it wasn't so great. Like you say, after that spin, he's going to struggle now as Olivier Fortin, because the thing is these tires, like you say, it's not about amount of rubber to canvas that's really the controlling factor of grip necessarily so much in this, because it's all about thermal degradation, these tires. And once you overheat the tire in that kind of sense, the rubber compound itself is just going to basically be like jelly, and it's just not going to grip to anything. It's just going to slip and slide all off of it. So keeping those tires under control thermally is far more important, and that can come from lockups, from pushing it too much. Kerstetter is going to drop a position here to Short, so Short moving his way up the order, the number 13 up into 10th place. Good stuff from him. The highest place low number is Jablonski, who's still in 4th place, doing a credible job, all the way up in 4th in the number 17. Obviously, taking a lot of his Skip Barber race school practice and learning from the instructors.
Yeah, and I think that that's a big piece of this series. You know, this is the big differentiator that Skip Barber is bringing to the series. Is this just isn't another, eRace or online race deployment where you pull in a bunch of drivers and you tell them to go at it and you have a set of prize set up. Skip Barber is actually working with each one of these drivers specifically. To develop their driving from session to session. We saw after the test a few days ago that we were doing offline, Skip Barber hopped in with each driver specifically, answered questions, and is helping develop these drivers from race to race and session to session. So at the end of the day, obviously we've got some heads up racing, but in reality, this is, the reward is almost, for a lot of these drivers, it's almost already being demonstrated by just having time to work with the Skip Barber staff.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, take this, for example. We did a test race on Friday night. There wasn't a full grid here. Oh, down the inside, though, there goes Short, moving up another position into T5. Good job. He loves that corner. We did a race here on Friday night. We did the full format, like the qualifying and then the 2 races. And the first race was won by Guindy by more than, I think it was 7.5 to 8 seconds. It was won. Now look at it. We've got 2 seconds back and another 2 seconds. It's pretty close. We've got a race to follow this as well. It is all very, very tight stuff at the top end of the field and at the bottom end of the field as well. It is tight all over the place. Saxon very much in touch for a podium as Sven de Vries, Jablonski and that lot not too far separated. They're separated by 1.5 seconds. The 3 of these coming across the line with 3.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, no kidding there. Earlier, I was talking about this before. I think one of the drivers spun out. Something worth mentioning is that we're not doing a set amount of laps. We're actually doing a set amount of time. I'm not exactly sure what that time is set at. We'll see in the next session. But ultimately,
15.
Is it 15 minutes?
It is 15 minutes.
15 minutes. So instead of having 10 laps to run around the track, these drivers actually are following a format that's similar to WEC or some sort of endurance racing where they start out with an X amount of time and they drive on the track, and by the time that the ticker comes down to 0, depending on your position on track, you might have an opportunity to finish your final lap, or you have to drive across the line and hit the checkered flag. So that's a bit of a differentiator here as well. We're not doing a set amount of laps, just as I mentioned. So how do you think that affects these drivers, Lewis, not knowing exactly where they are on the track?
Well, I've raced in both, and I've raced towards the front and towards the back of both, in the sense of whether it's times or laps. For me, I much prefer laps because times have this variable where, say for example, this battle here. So we've got Short, we've got Alistrini, and we've got Kerstetter. Guindy doesn't really care, right? He's just driving his own laps, so he'll just drive as many laps as he wants. He'll probably do 2 more after. Yeah, it'll be 2 more. But say for example, it was quite close to a third. He doesn't really care. So Guindy's going to go for the third. Meanwhile, if you're Short, you're sat here thinking, can there not be an extra lap? Can we wrap this up after 2? Because this is a lot of pressure that I'm dealing with here. So there is an intense dynamic down the field where you just don't know how many laps you're going to get. And you're effectively being pushed for an unknown amount of time. When you know how much time it is, when you think, I've only got 1 more lap to do this. I've only got 1 more time that I need to hit all of these apexes, it's fine. Whereas when you don't know, it's just like, what do I do? And from an attacking point of view, you don't know how long you have to make that move as well. And it's an intense dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the big thing for a lot of these drivers, if you are, the Kerstetter or some, and you're just gonna have a bit of an.
Is that de Vries?
Yeah, I'm not actually.
It is de Vries.
It's de Vries. Yeah, it's Sven de Vries in the 11 car. He's gonna lose potentially a few more positions here unless he can get that collected. And as we see. Or was that de Vries or is that Short? Because it looks like Short just lost a few positions.
Short has also dropped from 9th place. De Vries definitely was the one who spun. He's just come out ahead of the Sanchez Import driver, Felix Antoine Fortin. We look down now at the 11 car. You can see the 18 directly behind. Sven did say to me that he was expecting a spin at some point. I don't think he wanted one, but definitely received one there. Coming through turn 6, one that's bitten a few drivers. Now he is going to have a tough and tall order to defend a top 5 finish from Felix Antoine Fortin, who's definitely going to try and find his way through over the final lap of the race. One more time then around the Laguna Seca Raceway for the first race, for the opening race of the Skip Barber eRace series. It's going to be a tense effort for De Vries. That's separated the podium quite a lot. But Saxon's still very, very close to Jablonski.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for Sven, I mean, making that spin obviously is still in the top 5 positions, which is actually what he quoted us on where he was hoping to finish, which is good. As we're looking, actually, Saxon might go to the outside here and set up a pass. It looks like there's not enough room, so he's not going to be able to cross over. But this is the last lap. Obviously, 0 seconds going to be coming here on the clock. And as we were mentioning, for a lot of these drivers, when you cross the line, you actually are you don't know when it's going to be your final lap unless you look up and you see that there's only 50 seconds left. And if the laps take a minute and a half, you know that that's going to be your last lap. So I think for Sven, if you make that mistake late in the race like that, it's a little bit of an unknown of if you have an opportunity to catch up. Obviously, he was able to get back out on the track. And as I say that, here comes Guindy across the line in first position, taking the first win in race number 1.
Yeah, Cadwalder is going to go from second to second. Jablonski, huge up the order. Felix Antoine Fortin's been off at the final corner, I think, because Sven de Vries is going to come across in a comfortable 5th place. Gomez Jr. and then Felix Antoine Fortin is going to come across in 7th place. Kerstetter is going to take 8th. Matt Buser is going to take 9th position. Look at this, a tight fight back here. Alessandri's not really too far off the back of that. And Nicholas Short, so he must have just had a small off because he wasn't that far behind either. Chattini as well in 12th place. Manley, we look at Olivier Fortin now. This is down in 14th position. Neyman is going to come across after a decent early effort. Unfortunately, dropped down the order there. And Smalling, the youngest driver on the grid, going to come across the line in 16th place. 2 retirements from that, being Lockwood and Shepherd. But Guindy seemed pretty unchallenged in that race. But with the early start, like we said with De Vries in the test race, and to be fair, in the first race here, and to be fair, that early start from Jablonski, I think he might have a little bit of threat on the start here in the second race.
Yeah, no kidding. The as we saw there, actually, just in the background when Guindy was coming across the line, I believe it was Kerstetter, and I don't know if it was Short. I'd have to see the finishing order, but 2 drivers actually made a pass in the last 2 corners to pick up a spot. I think it was the 8 car of Kerstetter that was actually able to make a pass on Matt Busa. And as we've talked about just a little earlier, the drivers' numbers are respective to how they qualified. So it was a little bit interesting to see Kerstetter, make the pass on the 9 car of Busa and just tell him, hey, I qualified 8th. I'm going to finish 8th, and you're going to finish 9th. So that qualifying order spoke to the race just a little bit. And obviously we saw Johnny Guindy potentially, it looked like he ran away with the race. Obviously he was in first, from the point that he said at qualifying, his qualifying lap, he's been in first since then. But as you mentioned, from our test race on Friday, the gap actually back to second place wasn't that much. 3 seconds is a single spin, right? You have an opportunity for Cadwalder. If Guindy makes a small, simple mistake, I mean, he has the opportunity to make a pass and to put himself into first place, right?
Absolutely. Well, Jablonski, to me, I think did a great drive. I know I brought him up a few times, but to get a podium with a number 17 car shows how much pace he's learnt over the week, and also to have done that in a battle pack that wasn't done on just sort of like, I'll just cruise around and let everyone fall off. Obviously, Sven did have that spin, but it was under pressure from Jablonski, and Saxon as well was well, you can see there from the finishing order, only 3 tenths behind Jablonski in that number 4 car. So it's tight. It is tight. And there is a lot of pressure going on in the next 15-minute race. I'm sure we're going to see the same kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. From the fourth to 5th position, I mean, there was a bit of a gap there, but the top 4 drivers really came in and they were a very close little train there. I think the one thing worth mentioning really quickly before we go to break is that Josh Jablonski qualified 17th position and he finished in 3rd. That is a massive difference from where he started. And with that being said, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. We will be back for race number 2 here at the Skip Barber eRace series.
Welcome back, you guys, to the Skip Barber eRace series. We just saw race number 1 underway. Guindy coming in first place here at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. My name's Elliot Bishop. I'm joined here with Lewis McGlade. Lewis, how do you think that first race went?
It was a pretty dominating display from Guindy, but he's got a bit of a tall order to beat the likes of Cadwalder and Jablonski behind. We're about ready to go for another 15 minutes here at Laguna Seca. It'll be Guindy from pole. It's the same order that we finished with in race 1. We're about ready to go underway here once again. 15 minutes, the lights are coming on ahead of them. Cadwalder in second position. He wants to go one better in this race. And on the run down towards the Andretti hairpin for the first time in this race, it is a decent launch from Guindy as they all go single file and get in each other's slipstream. Cadwalder's going to defend from Jablonski on the run down towards that Andretti hairpin. He's got to hold left and keep the inside covered, but he doesn't do so. The 17 looks down the inside. The 3's going to try and go around the outside of the number 1. That one's not going to work. And Guindy has another clean launch to the top end. We're 3 wide in the background. We've got De Vries up into or holding 5th position from Gomez Jr., who's made up a decent amount of progress. De Vries now gets by Saxon and up into 4th, so that's a position gain for him again on this start. We've got them all over the gravel trap. Schettini, oh, there was contact there. There was definite contact there. I think that was Manley. Those two making contact out of T3. Now Schettini's going to try and get by the number 16 car of Alessandri. He's going to go around the outside of T5. Mad start here, and I think he might make that one stick. Yes, he does. Good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Really clean race start. I mean, we only saw one off of Manley, but at the end of the day, everyone else has kind of filed into order here. As we're on board with Jablonski, who qualified 17th, just as I mentioned a little bit earlier, but he finished in 3rd place in heat number 1, and now he's setting his sights on a pole or on a podium finish here, as he's going to file in just behind Cadwalder here, and Guindy seemingly creating a small bit of a gap. I'm not entirely sure how much. It looks like it's going to be about a half of a second. But as we're going to come down here on the front straightaway, it looks like Jablonski is going to make a pass coming across the line, and he's going to put himself into 2nd position.
Yeah, now he really needs to focus on picking up the slipstream. As long as Cadwalder doesn't fight him down towards T1, or T2 rather, he should be all right. But Cadwalder is going to die on the inside. There's contact between the two, and Cadwalder gets back up into 2nd position in the number 3, and the 17 goes backwards into the position that he finished in the previous race. Saxon and De Vries going side by side again. Saxon did manage to get by De Vries and then absolutely obliterated the inside gravel trap at the corkscrew. Flew over the inside of that one, but that was the black winged car that you saw there on the previous lap, just in the background. De Vries, though, he's eyeing up a move into turn 5. We've seen the outside work on a few occasions. Maybe going to go for a cutback on the run towards the turn 6. I think he's got it. This is the corner that De Vries went off in the previous race from a podium place. Backs out of it, doesn't fancy it. Gomez Jr. is directly behind, so he can't be doing that too much.
Yeah, I think De Vries learned his lesson in the last race. He doesn't want to sit here behind the 4 car of Saxon, but he also doesn't want to put himself in a position where he's going to be putting himself out of the race or drop back in the order. I think that this race here, a lot of these guys know what's on the line. They don't want to make these big mistakes that they were potentially able to make in the first race. Obviously they had a second race ahead of them, but this is it. This is the last race of the day. So for De Vries, he's got to put himself in a position where ultimately he can make that pass. He's not going to be held up, because we have seen him, run at a pace where he can finish on a podium, but he's going to be looking to pass Saxon and potentially here into turn number 2. I don't think he has the run up here, so he's not going to be able to make that happen just now. But ultimately, you have to leverage the risk, right? You have to look at what the opportunity is presented. You have to see what opportunity you have in front of you. But also, you have to understand that there's a bigger picture of the race, and not just the pass that is, that is opened up. So as we go back into the order to Short in 8th position, he's got himself in a position where he's still in the running. A lot of these drivers are within half of a second of each other, but a small mistake can put you in a place where you drop down from somewhere like 4th place. And if you drop back a second, I mean, you're going to be back in 11th position.
Yeah, it's any sort of mistake in this scenario is going to be a big one, so you're being very careful not to. Of course, these cars will be easier to drive at the early part of the race, but as the tyres degrade with the thermal degradation, they will drop off. Of course, these boys all wanting to do their tutors proud, and I think so far with the racecraft that we've seen thus far, they've all been learning from the Skip Barber instructors and doing a great job they've done to teach these guys. Of course, I'm sure they had a lot of racecraft in them, but to them, to a lot of these guys, this game's actually quite new to them. It's their first time racing in it, so getting a little bit of instruction, a little bit of help on that part would be very much received with gratitude. Guindy, by the way, I think it's the fastest lap of the race. He might be down to a 22.7 now, as he's pulled out 1.6 seconds on Cadwallader. The battle for the podium, though, is very much open. We've got Cadwallader, Jablonski, Saxon, De Vries and Gomez slightly off the back of that as this battle here that we've got Short, Felix Antoine Fortin, Kerstetter, Schettini, Busa, Alessandri, Olivier Fortin and Manley. Smalling's the only one who's dropped off the back of this, and Neyman's out of the race already.
Yeah, on turn number 11 on lap number 1, as we were talking about, the race leaders not wanting to battle too much. You saw Johnny Guindy with about a half-second lead. And as soon as I believe it was Jablonski went into the inside on turn number 11, which is the final turn before you come across the line, Guindy's lead actually hopped up to about 1.5 seconds, which he's been maintaining. He just picked up 0.3 there. I don't know if there was a bit of a battle going on. It looks like Saxon was actually able to pick up a position, and now he's in 3rd position. He was able to pick up a position on De Vries, and De Vries is going to go back. I'm not entirely sure what's happening there. Not sure if he has a bit of a high tire pressure and he's losing a little bit of pace, or you make a small mistake here in motorsports and in racing just in general, and sometimes it just throws you off just enough to where your pace, your methodical pace ends up having a few issues, and then people see the gaps and they see the opportunities and they make some passes. So De Vries now back in 5th position, which is, as we mentioned last race, what he was hoping to end up with. But obviously, I think all drivers at the end of the day want to finish in 1st position or on a podium. So De Vries, 9 minutes left, not out of the race, but obviously with a little bit of work to do ahead of him.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of separation here as we've got De Vries and Gomez Jr. as De Vries is dropping backwards. There was a little bit of a fight there that allowed Saxon to get up onto the podium, which Jablonski wasn't too happy with, and he's still half a second back, so can make something work from this. But De Vries needs to put in a bit more effort, a bit more elbow grease if he wants to close up to the back of this. Runs a little bit wide at T6 once again. The number 11 car got Gomez Jr. directly behind, and Nicholas Short, who has very much latched himself onto the back of the top 5 fight as we head through the corkscrew once again. You saw them all basically 2 or 3 wide out of this corner, heading down towards the rainy curve through T9 and then into the penultimate corner of 10. And it was a pretty feisty fight. Jablonski did very well to hold on to at least 4th position in that, because De Vries was trying to make it stick around the inside, outside, whichever way he could try. Didn't work out for him, dropped back a couple of positions just further down in the battle pack. Realistically, the train for 8th place, Kerstetter heading this one. We're focusing on P12, the number 14 of Olivier Fortin, who's having to defend a little bit from Manley, who went off on the opening part of this race coming out of T3. And he's going to have to defend all the way down towards the first corner down to Andretti hairpin. Doesn't really do so. Down the inside goes Manley, and he's going to make that one stick. Olivier was trying to go around the outside. That one doesn't really work, as we've seen plenty of times over the running of not only this event, but elsewhere. And Manley up into 12th, so on a bit of a recovery drive up the order. The number 5, Olivier Fortin's round. Olivier Fortin's round and into the barrier. Big style.
Yep. It looks like Olivier was just picking up a little too much curb on the exit of the corners. It wasn't necessarily on the inside. He was putting himself in a position where, he almost spun into turn number 3, just on the out of turn number 2. Oh, and it looks like we have a little bit of an off back there in the field.
Manley?
I think that may have been Manley, yeah.
It is.
So it looks like Olivier might actually have an opportunity here to pick up the position that he lost. But as I was saying, yeah, I think Olivier was just picking up a little too much curb on the exit, and we saw him drop a couple tires, which, obviously reduces the amount of grip that you have. And coming out of the next corner, he did the same thing and ended up putting himself in a position where he no longer had any grip and ended up spinning out. So he's going to have a hard time, catching back up. Now he has his brother just ahead of him. But as we're on board here with the 9 car of Busa, he's going to be coming down into turn number 2 as they go through 1 now. And it looks like Schettini just in behind Kerstetter. And it looks like he's going to put his nose in just behind on that rear left wheel of Kerstetter. But no, there's no opportunity there. And now he's going to be looking for an opportunity here. 6 minutes left. I believe that's probably about 4.5 laps left here, depending on where the race leader's at. But yeah, Schettini's looking for a massive opportunity to, obviously make a pass. Hopefully he can make it happen before the corkscrew, because the corkscrew is kind of a position in this track where a lot of drivers are wary of it, and they do not want to go to the inside or the outside on that corner. It isn't very safe. You can spin out if anywhere. Obviously, it looks like
Jablonski. Oh, no. After such a good drive in race 1, now down to 11th place. Oh.
Yeah, from 5th to 11th. I saw Gomez Jr. was all over the back of him when he was in 5th position. He dropped down. De Vries and Gomez, obviously, Gomez is now in a position where he's all over the back of Sven De Vries, and he's going to the inside. Potentially an opportunity here as they're going to run down the front straightaway. We don't have a great look at this, but it looks like he is on the inside coming into turn number 1. Will he have the opportunity in the pace?
I think he's got this. I think he is going to have this down towards the Andretti hairpin. Sven De Vries is going to try and hang it around the outside. Backs out of it, though, maybe trying to go for a bit of an undercut. He certainly is trying to do so on the run out of Andretti towards T3. Going to try and make it right around the outside. That's not really going to work. And Gomez Jr. up in the 4th position, a spirited effort at the final corner, makes that one stick. Now, Nicholas Short is very much in this battle pack. And sniffing maybe 2 positions in a couple of corners. De Vries now we're going to go to the outside of T5. The advantage there definitely goes the way of Gomez Jr.
Yeah, Gomez Jr. was driving an extremely defensive line, as you see him doing now. And Sven De Vries having a bit of an issue earlier in the race, having dropped down in the order quite a bit. But now he's back. He's telling these guys to wake up, and it's time to race. So he looks to the outside, potentially going into corner, I believe 8, which is the corkscrew, 8A and 8. And it looks like he's going to be holding his position, but he is all over the back of Gomez Jr. and just in behind is Short. I mean, these guys don't even have half of a car length in between the back end of their car and the front end of the other ones. As we saw, Sven De Vries, he's literally smelling the exhaust of the driver just ahead, and he's going to be in the slipstream coming across the line. And look at the gap. There isn't one. It's he could pretty much bump draft him here. He's going to look to the outside into turn number 2, and I don't know if he has the pace to hold this, as looks like Gomez Jr. is going to hold more of a defensive line. But if Sven De Vries can hold it here on the outside, he's going to have the opportunity to make a pass. And no, it looks like that's not going to happen here. So Sven De Vries now sitting back still in 5th position. But I think the dark horse here is Short, back in 6th position. He's just letting these guys go at it, and any door might open for him, and he could just slip in and make a pass and potentially put himself up into 4th position.
Maybe going to let them wear their tyres out. Wonder what tuition he's got, Nicholas Short, from all this. The 13 car up into 6th place. Like I say, could just let these two run their tyres out and maybe take advantage later on. Sven De Vries, he'll hate me saying this, but very well experienced sim racing driver. Has done some stuff in the real world, but over the last 6-7 years has done an awful lot in sim racing, be it open wheelers, touring cars, whatever. He'll race it, and he'll race it well. Has contended and won many a championship in sim racing, and this is another one that he's competing for. Whether he's going to contend for the championship in 7 weeks' time when we go to that finale, well, we'll have to wait and see. It's been a good opener for him thus far. P5 in the previous race, even after contending for the podium and a spin. Now we're currently running in 5th place, maybe looking at the idea for a 4th. And like you say, Nicholas Short in the background of the 13 car. Matt Booser, I think, is catching this lot as well, as they are battling hard, a little bit too wide there for Gomez Jr. Sven De Vries going to sneak down the inside. He's not really on the ideal line on the run down towards turn 3. He'd have to go to the outside, maybe going to go for a cutback. I think Matt Booser actually just dropped off the back of this a bit more over the course of T1. You can see him there in the background. De Vries, though, coming up towards T5 again. Too wide.
And there's
good
opportunity
hands.
for
Nicholas Short.
Yep.
Good hands to catch that, though.
Yeah, absolutely. That was where we actually saw, I believe it was Olivier Fortin spinning. That was the exact same corner. And I think one thing I was noticing here with De Vries is that he was much later on the brakes than Gomez Jr., which obviously... and it looks like Gomez Jr. is getting... And I think De Vries just went through to the to 4th position. I think that Short got just behind Gomez Jr. and bumped him. As we saw, the gap with the 3 of them wasn't very much. I mean, there was no margin for error. So as soon as he got up in behind Gomez Jr., it seems like Short just ended up spinning himself and Gomez out. And De Vries is in a position that Short should have been in, where he was able to just sneak through when the mistake happened.
Yeah, just a tiny tap from Short there. And, wow, it all went very much sideways. Now, Felix Antoine Fortin on the back of Gomez Jr. And maybe it might be outside of the top 10 that Gomez Jr. is going to finish in this, and definitely not deservedly of such a finished position after doing such a commendable job to defend 4th place. And, 4th was a place that he finished in the previous race as well. Oh, no, it wasn't. It was might be lower than that. It was Saxon who finished in 4th place, sorry. Gomez Jr. was doing a very, very good job, though. Needless to say, though, he's going to have to do a bit more hard work over the course of the final lap of the race, which we are currently on, if he wants to keep a top 10 from Felix Antoine Fortin. Top, though, we've got Sven de Vries, who has cleared off. Matt Buser is right in the mix for top 5.
And we're on the last lap of the race here with 10 seconds left in the session. I believe Guindy might actually end up crossing the line here before the clock. So it looks like he might end up having... oh, nope. He's actually on the final lap. So as soon as he comes across the line here, he will be the race winner of round number 1 of the Skip Barber e-racing series, as long as he doesn't make any mistakes here. And Cadwalder just in behind in 2nd place, Saxon in 3rd, as long as there's no changes here on the row. And I don't think that there's going to be, based on the gaps that are there. And Guindy comes across the line as race 1 winner. Did we see this coming?
Well, that first race that we had did really set it, and Guindy, they're going back-to-back with the first round races. That is incredible stuff. Gomez Jr. is actually going to hang on from Felix Antoine Fortin, as did Short from Booster as well. So the final battles, no changes on the previous lap, and good stuff. A dominant display from Guindy this round, but I would say Cadwalder finishing in 2nd place. A driver that hasn't really had the most amount of real racing experience. We did find out that he has driven this car at COTA in real life earlier before. And so as much as he doesn't have too much experience in the real world racing, this is a great opportunity for Cadwalder. Took part in some stuff over the previous year and did an excellent job in it. And it's good to see him do well here. 2 second places, and Saxon moves from 4th onto the podium this race, so +1 for him. Good stuff from the drivers today, and we've seen some quality racing around here. A lot of respect. Obviously, those tutors from the Skip Barber instructors are going to help.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that coming in 3rd place, Nathan Saxon. I mean, the guy's from Rhode Island. He's 23 years old. He's been driving in iRacing since 2011. But he works as a mechanical engineer, and this is his opportunity. He ended up on pole position, or sorry, not on pole position, but finishing on the podium. And I think that for him, obviously qualifying in 4th position, finishing in 3rd is a fantastic finish for him. But seemingly de Vries, I mean, we watched him for quite a bit of the race. He was in almost all of the action the entire race. He spun out, he caught up, he was in a close battle and in 3, with 3 drivers, and for him to finish in 4th position is mind-boggling to me. The amount of battling and spinning and mistakes and coming back onto the track and catching back up and making passes. I mean, he was going up and down the order the entire race, and he was just outside of that 3rd position. Potentially, if he had a few less battles and mistakes, he could have finished also in the top 3. But as we see, our finishing order on screen now: Guindy in 1st place, Cadwalder in 2nd, Saxon 3rd, de Vries in 4th, Short in 5th. Luckily, he didn't lose too many positions when that 3-car battle between de Vries, Short, and I believe it was Gomez Jr. that was just ahead. He didn't actually lose too many spots there, but we'll see what the race control ends up saying, because there could potentially be a penalty because he ended up getting in behind Gomez Jr. and spinning him out. Obviously it wasn't intentional, but racing happens, and especially with that pace that de Vries had, he was, it was inches off of the back bumper of Gomez as Gomez was leading. And in my experience, you don't want to be the guy that's in between in the sandwich. You want to be a piece of bread and not a piece of meat, so to speak. And as you saw, Short getting up and behind Gomez, spinning him out, and de Vries ended up just making up a few positions. So.
Yeah, well, we are going to be back in a week's time as we head to another legendary circuit. This time, though, we're heading to Spa, which is a fantastic circuit for us to head to. Of course, the qualifiers are open now, so you can come and have your go to get yourself onto the grid of the Skip Barber eRace series for round 2 that you do. skipbarber.com/eRace-series. Head over there, Google it as well. I'm sure there's a link somewhere as well. And then you too can also not only take part in the round, learn from the Skip Barber instructors, get yourself some tutelage, and fight towards the top end of the field. It has been a great broadcast. Myself, Lewis McGlade, Elliot Bishop alongside me. We've had a lot of fun here, but we will be ready to see you in a week's time. Until then, goodbye.